Gaur Gopal Das. Life's Amazing Secrets. How to find balance and purpose in your life. Gaur Gopal Das studied electrical engineering from the College of Engineering, Pune. After a brief stint with Hewlett-Packard, he decided to live as a monk in an ashram in downtown Mumbai. He has remained there for 22 years, learning the antiquity of ancient philosophy and the modernity of contemporary psychology, to become a life coach to thousands in the city. Gaur Gopal Das has been traveling the world since 2005, sharing his wisdom with corporate executives, universities, and charities. In 2016, his global popularity exploded as he took his message online. With millions of views on his videos on social media, he has now begun to lead a movement to help others achieve happiness and purpose in their lives. Now one of the most famous monks in the world, Gaur Gopal Das holds the title of the ideal young spiritual guru, conferred upon him by the Indian Student Parliament, MIT Pune. Advance praise for the book. Keeping balance in all situations is of utmost importance as it takes you to happiness and completeness. That's why Gaur Gopal Das says in Life's Amazing Secrets, happiness does not come automatically. We have to choose to live happily, we have to choose to live with integrity, and we have to choose to live with balance. It is this balance that will make our journey through life smooth and effective. Life's Amazing Secrets is a refreshingly accessible guide which can help man in conquering the daily battle and align him with his purpose in life. Devendra Fadnavis, Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Great work. Excellent style. Deep, profound lessons on how to live with purpose and balance, brought out through an entertaining storyline and interesting anecdotes. Life's Amazing Secrets highlights the right human values and thus can contribute to a stronger and better India. Nitin Gadkari, Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways, transforming lives through his inspiring words of wisdom. This is what Gaur Gopal Das Ji has been doing as a leading modern age speaker. His talks and numerous videos as a life coach have been a positive influence on people all over the world, of all age groups and all walks of life. It is amazing how he connects with youngsters as well as the greatest of personalities in the same manner. His simple and humorous talks guide us in our daily lives as he is able to explain the most complicated situations and give simple solutions to every problem. I'm sure that this light-hearted, conversational book called Life's Amazing Secrets will help one strike the right balance between work, relationships, society, and spirituality. Hema Malini, MP, actress and classical dancer. In this increasingly complex world, where placing trust in someone is a hazardous occupation, here comes a refreshingly simple yet effective guide to improving our lives and reducing stress. Gaur Gopal Das's huge popularity is due to his walking the talk, and therein lies his success. This book is the natural result of decades of his personal and spiritual development, which, along with his uncanny knack of understanding human behavior and a compassionate heart, leaves the reader feeling aware, optimistic, and introspective. A must-read. Hrishikesh Muftalal, Chairman, Muftalal Group. I have had the privilege of understanding the ancient epics from Gaur Gopal Das for over a decade. He has a deep knowledge and understanding of various epics, which he combines with his appreciation of contemporary issues and examples. This is a powerful combination which explains how the learning of these spiritual values can be lived in our lives today. And he has a great sense of humor which allows us to remember the lessons. His teachings can be applied to all people in all walks of life and at all stages in life. Ajay Piramal, Chairman, Piramal Group. Have you ever experienced the Indian monsoon? It brings one of the fiercest, most thunderous downpours of water from the heavens. If you're caught in the heavy rain, it's nearly impossible to stay dry. Similarly, it is hard not to get caught up in the challenges and negative situations of the world. Feeling peaceful, happy, and content is not about avoiding challenges in our life. but about how we navigate through these challenges to reach the type of life we want to live. Aldous Huxley said, "Experience is not what happens to a man, it is what a man does with what happens to him. It's how we respond that makes all the difference." If there is one possession we have that is the most valuable and can truly transform our lives completely, it is our free will. We are the authors of our own life stories. Challenges and difficulties may fall upon us, just as the monsoon rains fall upon our head. We don't seek them or solicit them. They just come our way. We must choose how to respond. Happiness does not come automatically. From a young age we receive methodical education in a variety of areas and fields, but happiness is usually not one of them. To live a happy life, with integrity and with balance, is one of life's amazing secrets which is revealed within this book. These are simple principles that can be used by anyone to experience a sense of satisfaction. Do you ever feel irritable or frustrated? Do you ever feel that life isn't going your way? Do you ever feel that there is a key part of your life that needs attention? If the answer to any or all of these questions is a yes, it's a sign that your life is probably out of balance. The secret of life is finding balance, not too much, not too little. Just as a car balances on four wheels, we must balance the four crucial areas of our life: our personal life, our relationships, our work life and our social contribution. Balance on an external level is about the alignment of the wheels. It is about adjusting our priorities based on the need of the moment, and focusing on that particular wheel which is out of alignment. At some points in our lives our work life may need more focus than our personal life. Have you ever wanted to spend time with someone who needs to meet a project deadline at work? It's impossible. They are too busy reaching their target. At other times our personal life may take precedence over everything else. Have you ever asked a couple organizing their wedding to spend more time at work? It's unreasonable to do so as they are planning one of the most important days of their lives. Dear friends, we must be willing to adjust our priorities to bring those wheels into alignment. However, a deeper aspect of balance that resides within us is about our attitudes and values that we have explored in the different sections of this book. That attitude is like the air in the tires of the car. If the tires of the car are not at the correct pressure, there can be a puncture, stopping us from getting to our destination. This is why we have to navigate the internal aspects of balance. If the external tenets of balance are adjustment and alignment, then the internal ones are attitude and values. As we balance ourselves externally and internally, it is fundamental to our success that we never let go of the steering wheel, our spirituality. If all the wheels are in proper alignment, if the air pressure in the tires is optimal, but we do not have the steering wheel in our hands, we still will not be able to reach where we want to go. It was the Buddha who said, "Just as a candle cannot burn without fire, we cannot live without a spiritual life." Spirituality, in whatever genuine form of practice, brings purpose to our life and gives us a destination worth going to. At times we may feel empty or lost or have an existential crisis, when we feel that we do not know where our life is taking us. It is at those times that we must hold the steering wheel of spirituality tightly and press on. The steering wheel comprises four pieces: our spiritual practice, sadhana, the association that we keep, sangha, our character, sadachar, and our service to God and to others, seva. When all these aspects of the steering wheel are adhered to properly, they give us the ability to drive the car of our life towards its destination. Let's get there, together. 1. Forgetting the keys. As you become successful, do not forget the keys to happiness. Happiness resides not in possessions, and not in gold. Happiness dwells in the soul. Democritus. It may have been a mistake to publicly announce that my favorite cuisine comes from the south of India, because the whole year, it was sambar for breakfast, sambar for lunch and sambar for dinner. In fact, sambars followed me everywhere I went. For those of you who do not know, sambar is a lentil-based vegetable stew, which accompanies famous rice-based dishes such as dosa or idli. From the United Kingdom to Australia, everyone who invited me to their home fed me their version of this much-loved lentil soup. Having had so much of it, it was only natural that I became a connoisseur of the dish. I knew where to find the best sambar in any town, let alone my own. And that is where our story begins. Although I grew up in Pune, my heart lies in a simple ashram, paradoxically situated amidst the skyline of downtown Mumbai. I have lived there as a monk for 22 years, where I have not only been studying ancient Eastern wisdom for my enrichment, but also learning how to share its practical application with the world. People who attend my lectures regularly invite me to have lunch at their homes, but, to their disappointment, I usually decline. As a monk, I have to be cautious of overindulgence. It is essential to stay regulated in our habits. But after months of pleading, I hesitantly accepted an invitation to go to Mr. and Mrs. Ayyar's home, a decision which would deepen my understanding of happiness in the long run. Mumbai is notoriously humid in mid-May. It's the type of sticky humidity in which your sweat causes your shirt to stick to your back. But one only felt like that at sea level, not in the cloud-bound apartment of Hariprasad and Lalita Ayyar situated in a high-rise in elegant Worli. This area of Mumbai is what Fifth Avenue is to New York, or Park Lane is to London. Indeed, if there were a version of the board game Monopoly for Mumbai, you would be paying a hefty price if you landed on Worli's distinguished towers, Palais Royal or Omkar 1973. And, here I was, a monk with hardly a rupee to my name, enjoying the cooling breeze from the Arabian Sea on the 28th floor home of my gracious hosts. A word of caution, I have changed the names in this story. This adjustment is not only to be sensitive towards the couple whose secrets I am about to share, but also to avoid offending those who have ever fed me sambar that didn't live up to the standards set by the ears. The lunch started with me getting confused. I had never eaten sambar solely with a spoon, let alone 3. They sat me at the head of their rich oak dining table, which overlooked the sea. A fragile, glittering centerpiece on the table illuminated the room as it shone in the midday sun. The table was set only for me, a weighty gold leaf-shaped plate with a satin napkin folded into a swan on it and cutlery of varying shapes and sizes around the plate. The 3 spoons lay in front of me, 2 knives to my right and 4 forks to my left. 4 forks. I wasn't sure if we had 4 in our entire ashram, as nearly everyone just uses their 5 fingers. I looked at Mr. Ayyar slightly uneasily and begged him and his wife to join me for lunch, not only to guide me through the maze of cutlery but to also give me company. It's no fun eating alone. Mr. Ayyar wanted to serve me lunch personally, but on my persuasion, he joined in. His wife, however, fought the offer and insisted that she would personally serve us both hot dosas and other preparations created by the army of chefs in their bustling kitchen. And so, armed with a dessert knife in one hand and a salad fork in the other, I attempted to cut the dosa. It was clear this was an abnormal situation for me. Hariprasad smiled warmly at me, rolled up his sleeves and started eating with his hands, signaling to me that it was okay to do the same. I was delighted. I have always believed that food tastes better when you eat with your hands. Although he was wealthy, Hariprasad didn't seem to have an air of arrogance around him. "How are you so humble around so much prestige?" I asked him. "I don't think I'm humble, but any humility you think I might have is due to my simple South Indian parents who raised me with so much love," he replied. Although there were many around his plate today, Hariprasad wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I grew up in a small village outside Chennai. He began as he dipped his dosa in the sambar. His wife, Lalita, came in with another round of dosas and sat momentarily, listening to her husband with interest. My father worked in a textile factory, Hariprasad continued. His wages supported our family, and the factory gave us free cotton clothes that were passed down from my elder brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest, so most of my clothes had my brothers' names on the label. My father worked very hard for us. But look at your clothes now. You can only afford them because you're the cleverest out of all your siblings, Lalita interjected as she served him another hot dosa. They lovingly smiled at each other. I noticed that he indeed looked like an elegant statesman in his Gucci attire. What about your mother? I asked. My mother stayed at home with us. She picked us up from school, cooked all our meals and was our counselor when times were hard. Her hair was always tightly tied in a bun, but her arms were always open for a hug. She made our education her top priority because she wanted us to live a better life. Well, it seems like you're living it now, I said. Hariprasad took no notice of my comment and continued, I remember the stress of both getting into IIT Bombay and then performing well there. It was worth it though because the Harvard MBA program accepted me immediately, given that I secured a gold medal at IIT. The sight of mango kulfi, an Indian ice cream, brought in from the kitchen on a silver tray by Lalita, stalled our conversation momentarily. Are you talking about Harvard? Lalita asked, while serving me 2 scoops of kulfi despite my protests. That's where we first met, she told me. I was completing my medical studies there when we ran into each other at the Harvard India student group, and it was love at first sight. But I didn't meet the South Indian Hariprasad then, I met Harry, as his American friends called him. Well, I'll call him Harry from now on. I laughed. As lunch came to a close, Harry spoke of the work he does as the director of a multinational consulting firm. Harry's success at Harvard gave him a boost. Now at 35, he was already one of the youngest directors in the company's history and he was responsible for the firm's Asia operations. We both are trying to help as many people as possible before we think about children. We want to empower people to be successful, Harry said, holding his wife's hand. I was pleasantly surprised at how cultured and courteous this couple was. Lalita's world-class sambar also symbolized the warmth and love between them. Thank you for a wonderful lunch, I said to them, signaling that I had to leave. I would love to stay longer, but we have meetings at the ashram in an hour. Can you call me a cab? I requested. A cab? Harry exclaimed as if offended. Please let me drop you back. The ashram is only 30 minutes away. I remembered Harry owned a Mercedes. What a quick journey home it would be in that. I thanked Lalita for the delicious meal. She thanked me back with a smile, but I noticed that she was holding her stomach as though she was not feeling well. I thought nothing of it and neither did Harry. We rushed to the elevator, which transported us from the clouds into the underground garage in moments. Harry frisked himself in a panic as the elevator doors opened. It was the same expression one has when they cannot feel their phone in their pocket. I've forgotten my keys, he said, as he vigorously pressed the button for the elevator to take him back to the 28th floor. I'll be right back. He left me in what seemed like a deserted parking garage. As I walked deeper into the car park, automatic lights came on to reveal a young boy's paradise, a festival of the most expensive cars imaginable. I walked around the garage, remembering how fascinated I was with cars in my childhood. I chuckled as I saw my reflection in the window of a Ferrari that was the same shade of orange as my robes. But I couldn't see Harry's Mercedes in the parking lot. The doors of the elevator sprung open, and soon an out-of-breath Harry jumped out jingling his keys. "Where's your Mercedes?" I asked curiously. "I had to sell it, unfortunately. The chassis was too low for the streets of Mumbai. I bought a Lexus instead. I heard having one is the mark of a true gentleman. I suppose that's a good problem to have, whether to sell your Mercedes and buy a Lexus." We both laughed like old friends. As we hurried to his gleaming Lexus, I expressed how deeply impressed I was that a couple of their stature, their wealth, and influence was reconnecting with their spiritual roots again. "Can I tell you a story that I think you'll appreciate?" Harry nodded as we both settled in for our short journey across town. He turned on the passenger light and gazed at me intently as I began speaking. "Going on a holiday with your friends is one of the best experiences you can have. Before I became a monk, 3 of my close friends from university in Pune and I decided to take a trip to New Delhi together. We had booked a hotel, but little did we realize that our room was on the 18th floor of a high-rise building," I said, watching Harry reverse the car from his parking spot. After we dropped our bags off, we decided to explore the city by autorickshaw. We started at Red Fort, ate lunch at Chandani Chowk, meditated at the Lotus Temple and then rested on the lawns around India Gate. It had been a good day. Tired and slightly hungry, we decided to return to our hotel and order room service. We arrived at the hotel just after sunset, to the news that the elevator had broken down. Harry gasped. "What did you do?" We were young, so we decided to walk up all the way to our room. "That's insane. I would cancel my gym membership if I had to walk up to my apartment. I would probably have to carry Lolita on my back," he joked. We were exhausted by the end of it, but as the saying goes, time flies when you're having fun. Speaking and laughing with friends makes everything easier. "I agree," he said, nodding. "What did you all talk about?" "Well, we told jokes and stories, made each other laugh, mocked each other. We moved from floor to floor with no complaints whatsoever. On the 15th floor, we realized that one of our slightly chubby friends wasn't saying much. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," he said bluntly. "We all have that one friend who is terrible at telling funny stories. He was that guy. All my friends are funny." Harry exclaimed. "Well, you're probably the unfunny one then," I teased. So after a few minutes of persuasion, we convinced this friend of ours to tell us a story. He stuttered at first, but then blurted out, "My funny story is that I've forgotten the keys to our room in the rickshaw." Our faces dropped. We had just learnt about the principle of ahimsa, or nonviolence, at the Lotus Temple, but in that situation, ahimsa was impossible to practice. Using all our power of restraint, we started our silent journey back down to the reception, praying that the hotel had some spare keys. Harry burst out laughing. "I can imagine the anguish on your face when you found out he didn't have the key." I nodded. However, only years later did I understand the lesson behind this story. I thought of it again today when you forgot your car keys. Harry, you have made incredible progress in life. People only dream of the kind of success you have achieved. From studying at prestigious institutions around the world to having a loving partner, living on the top floor of a skyscraper, having a 7-figure salary and a professional reputation years ahead of your age, you have come a long way. However, I am so glad that you haven't forgotten the keys to your happiness as you have moved up on the ladder of success. As a society, it's all too easy to focus on our external achievements and forget to assess whether we are happy with the state of our life. I'm relieved that you haven't neglected that aspect of your life. I suppose so. Harry remarked uneasily. He wasn't smiling anymore. I sensed the change of tone in his voice. An awkward silence fell upon us as we left the underground parking. Immediately bystanders started taking notice of the car and began gawking at it. There was something he wanted to say, but I didn't know what. 2. Seeing beyond the obvious. Behind the smiles, everyone is going through personal struggles we know nothing about. Nelson Mandela once said, as I have said, the first thing is to be honest with yourself. You can never have an impact on society if you have not changed yourself. Great peacemakers are all people of integrity, of honesty, but humility. Have you ever walked into a room where two people have argued? You can immediately sense the stale energy in the room, the silence between them can be deafening. Miscommunication can spark similar tension. When Harry fell silent, I found myself wondering, had I said something wrong? Had I offended him? Insulting someone who has hosted you at their home is one of the most regrettable things one can do. 2 minutes passed before I decided to break the deadlock. So where did you buy this car? I asked, trying to change the subject to something more palatable. Harry appreciated that I was trying to find common ground and followed suit. He still didn't feel comfortable sharing with me whatever it was he was thinking. Well, I needed to buy a car after I sold the Mercedes. My wife and I were taking cabs everywhere for the first few weeks. One day when we were visiting some friends in Juhu, the cab stopped at a traffic light directly outside the Lexus showroom. That was when I saw her sparkling from within the polished glass. It was love at first sight. He cheered up at that memory. This car seems like your prized possession, I replied. He nodded repeatedly. There are not many things in the world that can make you happier than a car like this. Look at the detail of the readings on the dashboard, the stitching on the white faux leather seats, the feel of the steering wheel. In fact, it can do 0 to 100 at the same time. The Mercedes CA. Harry slammed the brakes, our seat belts tightened, and I saw him firmly gripping the steering wheel. We came to a sudden halt. Carried away by his thoughts, he had not realized that the traffic had built up ahead. Sorry about that, I wonder what the problem is, he said apologetically, peering ahead. No problem, I replied. Are you okay? I asked, a little startled. Harry gazed into the distance, trying to see the root of the problem, but had no luck. Yes, I am okay, but I'm surprised. There is never traffic here, he said, sounding disappointed. Although things have improved to some extent, Mumbai is still known as India's crash capital. It has roughly the same number of cars as London, but more than 4 times the number of road fatalities. Cars can sometimes be reckless as they zip past red lights and try everything to zigzag through dense traffic jams. However, for the moment we were trapped in his Lexus and not going anywhere. I messaged one of my colleagues that I would be late for the meeting. We're stuck, I uttered, trying my best to be heard over the din of cars consistently honking with no results. Even in my new car, I'm stuck. It doesn't matter how fast it can go. I'm stuck. Harry's voice choked up. Why do I feel so stuck? He screamed as he hit the steering wheel of his prized possession. Is it the fault of the people in the cars ahead of me? They caused the traffic? Is it that they didn't build the roads wide enough? I didn't build the roads. Or is it my fault? His voice trembled. Did I buy the wrong car? Should I have bought a motorbike? Is it too late to buy a motorbike? I sensed that something was going on in his life that he wasn't telling me about. I put my hand on his shoulder. His head dropped, and he placed his hands in his lap. His lip quivered, and he looked away from me, out of the window. In the reflection of the driver's side window, I saw a few lonely tears leave his sorrowful eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't know what came over me." "Don't be sorry. We can all feel stuck at times." "Why do you feel stuck?" I asked empathetically. "I'm sure you don't have time for all of this." "I have all the time in the world for you. Firstly, because we're going to be stuck here for a long time, and secondly because you have fed me the best somber I've ever tasted in my life." He chuckled as he dried his eyes with his silk handkerchief. He knew I was trying to lighten his mood. When we comfort someone, it is easy to fall into their sorrowful energy, which can perpetuate their suffering. It's important that we bring positive, non-judgmental energy into these conversations. "Where do I start?" "Wherever you feel comfortable," I whispered. "I'm listening." He sighed and then began. "Only a fool would say that he is not happy while driving a Lexus, but then I guess I am that fool. I have everything that I could have dreamt of, but within myself, I have this sense that something is missing." He looked out of his window again as if gazing into the lost past that he was about to reveal to me. "It started at IIT Bombay. I never wanted to go there in the first place. I never wanted to study engineering, but my parents wouldn't take no for an answer. They insisted that engineering is where the money is. If you get into IIT, life will be yours. If I ever questioned them, they would make me feel guilty by bringing up how much they did for me and how I shouldn't let them down." He paused, as he thought the traffic was moving. It was a false alarm, we were still stuck. He continued, "I think my parents were living their ambitions through me. My father was fascinated by the updating software in the textile equipment at his factory. He wanted me to be one of those superheroes at his factory who could come in and solve any technical problem. You may not be a software engineer, but you seem to be doing well now. Aren't you?" I pondered. "You went to Harvard." "Harvard was me rebelling." Harry snapped. He took a deep breath. "I had to get away from my parents and siblings. I wanted to live my own life, so I escaped to America. I know it seems ludicrous, but I didn't think about the Harvard MBA program thoroughly. I just took it without thinking, just to get away. I had a full scholarship. After years of studying the wrong thing, I wanted to live my own life. So was Harvard the solution? Unfortunately, no. I completed the course, but it wasn't my calling. One great thing was that I did meet Lolita, or Lily, as her friends would call her there. Both of us being South Indians, we instantly connected. Forget this car, that was yearly love at first sight. I was also fascinated that she studied medicine and wanted to be a pediatrician. Maybe I was slightly jealous of her at times because it was there that I realized I wanted to do medicine too. But it was too late. I didn't have the time or the money to study medicine. So I kept it all in, and we returned to India for our marriage. It was taking a lot out of him to reveal all of this, but I did not want to interrupt. Our marriage is amazing. Well, it started amazingly. Lolita was training to be a doctor for children, and I was headhunted for a job at my current consulting firm. They promised me a six-figure salary, not including my bonus. I've come up the ranks rather quickly. But at what cost? I constantly ask myself. The stress and long hours of both our jobs has weakened our relationship. We have little time for each other, let alone time to raise children. The sweet words Lolita briefly spoke to me at our home are rare. She has no idea how cutting her harsh words are to me, which leads to fights and, well, you know, marriage problems. It got so heated the other day that she yelled she wanted to get a divorce, he said, looking out of the window again. The sea, which had earlier given us its cooling breeze in his apartment, was now shimmering and sweltering. How can love that started so pure evaporate so quickly? Funnily, despite all this, I'm at a stage where I do not like my work, and I don't look forward to being at home. But with my status, who will believe that I'm not happy? He certainly was honest, I thought to myself. Our egos are such that admitting our sorrows to someone else comes when we are incredibly humble or when we are in considerable pain. I felt he was a mix of the two. We tend to take everyone at face value, equating what they have on the outside to how they feel on the inside. The paradox of our times is that those who have the most can often be the least satisfied. We have mastered how to look successful, but not how to organize our lives so that we feel successful. These were the thoughts that came to my mind when he was speaking, but I kept them to myself. To me, listening to understand is more important than listening to reply. The wheels of the car edged forward a few meters. At least we were on the move. 3. The journey begins. Having a friend to listen to your problems and discuss them with you is the beginning of finding a solution. Lao Tzu once said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." What do we do when people we are close to are sharing their worries with us? I wanted to say so much as Harry spoke of his inner turmoil, but then I remembered my training as a monk. Our silent presence can be more powerful than a million empty words. We all have 2 ears and 1 mouth. The amount we listen and the amount we speak should be done proportionately. Rarely do people want an active solution to their problems before they have been thoroughly heard and understood. I remember the early days when people used to come and confide in me. I was a young, eager, fresh-faced monk then, keen to save the world with my newfound sense of purpose. In my immaturity, I would pounce on the solution as soon as it came to me, not understanding that people don't care what you know unless they know you care. In fact, the answer to all problems related to the human condition seldom excludes a conscious, compassionate ear. The attitude of listening attentively is equally essential to the solutions we may present. I was not going to make that mistake this time with Harry. I was glad that the traffic was clearing up, and so were my thoughts. A few moments of silence passed before I spoke. "Harry, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Thank you for trusting me and sharing this. Even when you just speak to someone about your problems, do you not feel lighter? Do you not feel hope that things will get better?" Harry looked at me, unconvinced. "I want to get out of this mess. But I don't see a way out without ruining my life completely. I'm nearly 40 years old. It's too late to make any dramatic changes. What should I do? What should I do are the 4 words any life coach hates," I thought. This is because any direct advice given by them turns into a magic spell that if followed will provide guaranteed results because Gaur Gopal Das said so. But that is not the case. Following blindly like sheep can lead us astray. Making choices in life is like buying something at a shopping mall. The sales assistant may show us all the products available, telling us the pros and cons of each of them, but we must make the choice in the end. The final decision is our responsibility. "I'm not your guru, I'm your friend," I asserted. "We must make our own decisions, and I can only help you within my capacity. I do not know it all, nor do I claim to, but from my experience of being a friend to thousands of people around the world, you are not alone. Many people are going through similar struggles as you." Harry sighed again, but it seemed like a sigh of relief, as we crept through the Mumbai traffic. "Do you see how many people are stuck in this traffic jam?" I asked. "They are all like us. They may be in different cars, but they are all stuck. Look around you, one elderly gentleman there is driving a cab with British tourists in the back seat, that cab driver over there jamming to old Bollywood classics on the radio, and even that Rolls-Royce in the distance." Harry winced at the sight of a car better than his. "We all have three things in common: we are all stuck, we all have a journey to complete, and we all have a destination. Now imagine the traffic jam all cleared up. We would all be free to complete our journeys in peace and reach the destination that we choose." "What's that got to do with my situation though?" Harry retorted. "There is a traffic jam within our minds, Harry. And that traffic jam is stopping each one of us from reaching our true potential. Imagine if we knew how to clear this disruption. No fumes of insecurity causing us to cough, no one honking at us, distracting us from what's important, and plenty of fuel to sustain us so that we can live a life worth living." There were no tears in Harry's eyes, I could only detect interest. "The process to clear the traffic within my mind started 22 years ago. I regret the pain I caused my parents, but at that time I ran away from home to become a monk. It was then that I learned about the wheels of life. All of these cars around you have four wheels equally weighing down on the axle. The loss of air in any one of these wheels can slow you down in reaching your destination, the loss of one can be fatal. Therefore, it's imperative that your wheels are regularly checked and maintained. Similarly, there are four principles that form the foundation of a happy life. They aren't based on any label we place on ourselves and apply to all, whether we're monks or married, young or old, rich or poor, atheist or religious. They are not dependent on nationality, race, gender, or profession either." Harry looked me straight in the eyes as the car halted again in traffic. "I'm ready to learn them. In fact, I've been ready since I was 18. 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 4. Growing through gratitude. We must find positivity in the bleakest situations and live by the principle of gratitude. Michelle Obama once said, "We learned about gratitude and humility that so many people had a hand in our success, from the teachers who inspired us to the janitors who kept our school clean, and we were taught to value everyone's contribution and treat everyone with respect." Harry's fair complexion brought out the contrast in his dark brown eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul, I thought. As he stared at me, I noticed parts of his sclera were bloodshot, partly from the stress of telling me his miseries and partly from the excitement of the conversation that lay ahead of us. "The traffic of the mind, you were saying?" Harry said, eager to get back on track again. We lost eye contact briefly as he stretched his neck above the steering wheel to see if the traffic was clearing ahead. It was, albeit at a sluggish pace. "So, the traffic of the mind," he repeated. "The traffic of the mind," I smiled at him. "The mind is what we use to perceive the world. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. Like your sunglasses." I pointed to his designer glasses resting on the dashboard. "When you wear them, the way you see the world changes. Things that once looked bright now look dull and lifeless. The things themselves haven't changed. Our perception has." The car at a complete standstill, Harry fiddled with the frames of his sunglasses, pondering my point. "But things do change over time. My wife and I have become entirely different people." "I agree. The sands of time slow for no man. Things change for better and for worse, but what we choose to perceive is up to us." And that is a personal choice. Do we see the positive or the negative in a situation? I could sense his confusion. Let me give you a personal example, I said, and explained. See the positive: we all boil at different degrees. Some of us have temperaments like the Indian summer, hot, sticky, and easily irritable. Yet some can remain level-headed in the worst of calamities, and as a monk, I was taught to control my emotions. So naturally, I assumed that I was in the latter level-headed category. That was until the day I realized I wasn't there yet. To most people, the word ashram induces a romanticized vision of a temple situated in the foothills of a mountain whose name is difficult to pronounce. But not our ashram. Our ashram is a network of corridors in South Mumbai, a part of town that never sleeps. With over 100 monks living together, it can feel congested at times. One can imagine how long we're waiting for the bathrooms in the morning. One day, 10 years ago, I stormed into the room of my spiritual guide, Radhanath Swami. We're fortunate that he lives with us in the ashram, giving us easy access to him to share our joys and listen to our grievances. Have you been inside his quarters? They're extraordinary. If you could capture the smell of simplicity and sell it as a fragrance, it would be the essence of his room. Measuring a mere 5 square meters, with 2 simple tube lights and straw mats that line the floor, it feels as if one is entering a village home. The place is barren of furniture except for a small table that rests a few inches above the ground and a wooden chair for the elderly guests who visit him. Bookshelves line 2 of the walls up to the ceiling, with ancient books of wisdom sitting side by side with contemporary research. Musical instruments, a harmonium, and a mridangam drum sit next to the focal point of the room, a small altar on which rest the deities of his meditation. It's all changing, I whispered under my breath as I knocked on my guru's door. Come in, he said. I sulked through the wooden doors with my head down. Radhanath Swami was sitting on the floor at his modest desk, his legs crossed and back straight. I repeated what I had said a little louder as I sat down and crossed my legs. It's all changing. I couldn't take it, I had to tell him. Gaur Gopal, he said inquisitively in his American accent that now had hints of an Indian one. He peered at me over his reading glasses with a penetrating gaze. He closed the book he was reading, which had a cover that looked like a relic from a bygone era, and went back to his original stance with his hands in his lap. I had his attention. That was my signal to speak. I exploded. For 45 minutes I nitpicked every grievance I had with the management of the temple and the many people who had wronged me. I complained that if this continued, it would ruin our community. I felt like a self-appointed savior who had to point out these negative mannerisms creeping into our society. If we do nothing about all this, everything will be spoiled, I finally ended. He sat there with a grave look on his face. Not a word left his mouth as I grumbled on. Have you finished? He said sternly. I sighed. Yes. There are so many positive things happening in our community, he started. For the next 45 minutes, he did not mention a single complaint I had made. He only focused on the positives, uplifting my mood. I am not saying these problems don't exist, but the real problem is that when negativity consumes the mind, not only do we lose the vision to see the beautiful things around us, but also the ability to solve the problems that confront us. We have to train our mind to focus on the positive and feel empowered to deal with the negative. He then spent equal amounts of time going through the practical solutions to all my problems and then swiftly instructed me to go for lunch with all the other monks in the dining hall. He did not ignore the fact that some of my complaints were genuine. It was not that the problems I had were not real. We all go through real challenges, for which solutions should be found. But what Radhanath Swami taught me was the power of having a positive state of mind whilst dealing with problems constructively. That brings a lot of clarity, Harry said. I could sense a but. But how long did your positive attitude last? Are you telling me that Radhanath Swami just told you to be positive and it miraculously happened? Well, the miracle lasted at least an hour until lunchtime, I laughed. This state of mind develops over time, and I realized that fully while eating lunch. An unforgettable lunch. I left Radhanath Swami's room in high spirits. That's one of the effects of enlightened people, they make others feel inspired in their company. I galloped to the lunch hall, not physically. Anyone who has ever worn a dhoti would understand how hard that is, elated and full of positive energy. The kitchen at our ashram cooks lunch for over 200 people daily. They have pots bigger than some grown men, and gas burners with flames larger than many ceremonial wedding fires. National Geographic featured our kitchen in their documentary on India's mega kitchens. Steamed rice, dal, lentil, spicy vegetable curries and hot flatbread chapatis, a simple, but satisfying lunch. What enhanced the flavor for me even more was the new appreciation for the people around me. The people in the room were a bit like my lunch. On occasions, the dal does not have enough salt, the curry is too spicy, or the gulab jamun has a bit too much ghee. However, they still nourish me. I looked at every face in that hall. I may have perceived faults in them in the past, but they had all helped me in my journey. I learned on that day that when we think negatively of people, we should immediately counteract that energy by contemplating 3 positive qualities they have. I did make some awkward lingering eye contact with many of the monks in that hall as I gawked at them, leaving them with confused expressions. But my intention was correct, I was training the mind to see the good. As I digested my thoughts and lunch, I returned to my room to plan for a lecture that I was giving that night. I opened my laptop that revealed a horde of unread emails. I did not have time to read them considering my pressing evening deadline. What to speak about? I thought as I rhythmically tapped my fingers against the side of the laptop and rocked in my chair. Nothing came to my mind. I was preoccupied with something in my teeth. A small cumin seed had lodged itself between the lower molar teeth on the right side of my mouth. I relentlessly fiddled with it. It was as if my tongue was playing tennis against my teeth, with the seed as the ball. After 15 minutes of frustration, and feeling as if I was 2 sets down in this heated game, I went to the bathroom. My first tactic was rinsing my mouth with water. I used a range of motions to flush out the cumin seed, but I had no luck. The spice that had usurped the space between my teeth stayed put. My second tactic increased the pressure on my unwelcome friend, dental floss. To be honest, and I want to apologize to any dentists reading, I rarely flossed, so I did not have the manual dexterity to use the minty fresh string. My last port of call was my interdental brushes that I used occasionally. They are little fine bristled brushes which fit between the teeth and look like tiny plaque fight swords. As you can guess, I was successful. With one delicate swoop in between my teeth, I stabbed the cumin seed straight in its core, banishing it from my mouth forever. It was a small, but significant victory. Returning to my laptop, I knew precisely what I would present that evening, my experiences with Radhanath Swami and the cumin seed. It was a sufficiently intriguing, but ridiculous, title to entertain the crowd. However, my incident with the seed had a valuable lesson. The mind is like the tongue. It drifts towards the negative areas of our life, making us restless and uneasy. It schemes to uproot the problems that are causing us so much pain, not realizing that the persistent scheming is causing us more emotional damage. The mind neglects the 31 other seed-free areas of life. choosing not to focus on the simple joys available to us. This is not to say we shouldn't deal with problems in our life. We need practical solutions too, and dental brushes are necessary. But we should not be consumed by them. That leads to misery. We have to focus on gratitude. Gratitude is not a feeling, it is a state of mind that can be developed, and it allows us to tap into a reservoir of unlimited positive energy. Being grateful happens in 2 steps. The first is to realize that there is good in the world and that good has fallen upon us. The second is to know that goodness is coming from something other than us. An external reality is giving the gifts of grace to our very own reality. This could be our family, our friends, nature, and even God. We have so much to be grateful for. Statistically, we always have more to be grateful for than ungrateful. Ingratitude means to forget the blessings in our life, to ignore the kind things people have done for us. It is not just positivity we feel when we embrace gratitude. Better sleep, the ability to express more kindness, feeling more alive, and even having a stronger immune system are all benefits of being thankful. A poem composed by Johnson Oatman, Jr., which we had sung in our primary school, summarizes my message eloquently. When upon life's billows you are tempest-tossed, when you are discouraged, thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. So gratitude is the key to remaining positive and happy. Harry confirmed. Certainly, I replied. It's not the happy people who are grateful, it's the grateful people who are happy. Does that make sense? Partly, Harry hesitated. I can think of things I should be grateful for, but that's not the case for everyone. I know people who have been through hell and back, whether it's losing loved ones or being disease-stricken. How can they be grateful? For some reason or another, the thought of my friends in Mumbai whose daughter had been diagnosed with terminal cancer came up. Yes, you're right, Harry. It's hard to be grateful in certain situations, and we must be careful while explaining this principle to others. When people are suffering, we should not insensitively tell them to be grateful. That would be uncompassionate. Gratitude has many layers to it. Let's understand them thoroughly. Incurable: what is the worst disease you can think of? For most people, it would be cancer. But they would not associate it with the young. Professor Peter Sasieni says, cancer is primarily a disease of old age, with more than 60% of all cases diagnosed in people aged over 65. It's a disease of the old. However, this was not the experience of my friends whose 4.5-year-old daughter, Gandharvika, was diagnosed with the fastest growing tumor in humans, Burkitt's lymphoma. Gandharvika's father, Mr. Mukund Shumbag, a close friend, narrated the story to me. I can feel a lump in her stomach, the doctor said to me. And it feels pretty large. The doctor paused and turned away to his computer screen, scribbling some notes. I don't want to worry you, he continued. Those 6 words are enough to worry someone. I am a dentist by profession. Sometimes we say this will hurt a little bit, but in reality, it may hurt a lot. I don't want to worry you, but as your daughter is also complaining of a stomachache, I think we should take her to the hospital. That's fine, I said to the doctor, who was now dialing away on his phone making arrangements for something. Will your referral letter come by post? How long will it take? I asked naively. No, what I mean to say is, we need to get her to the hospital right now, he said. I looked at him in panic. We had plans as a family after the appointment, but the urgency on his face signaled to me that he thought it was serious and had be attended to right away. After a short car ride, we arrived at the hospital with the radiologist waiting there to meet us at the reception. Our doctor had made some calls. The radiologist looked familiar, he was a member of our spiritual community too. He took my daughter and me upstairs to his clinic, making small talk on the way. I was nervous, but Gadharvika was having the time of her life. This was an adventure for her. I tried to make conversation with the radiologist, but oddly enough he was also nervous. Had our doctor told him something that we did not know? In his clinic, the radiologist performed sonography, ultrasound, on Gadharvika. The cold gel tickled her stomach, I remember her laugh. He did not say much, but he did perform a biopsy and said that he would call us with the results. I cannot speak a sentence long enough to describe how long those 48 hours were. I picked up the phone when it rang, but I immediately dropped it. The doctor said that Gandharvika had a rare form of cancer. Just the word fills me with fear. How can one be grateful knowing that this excruciating disease is going to affect someone that they love more than their own life? My wife, Pavitra, and I found it impossible at first, but the love we received from our community exemplified how much we had to be grateful for. Our friends and family stepped in as soon as the treatment began. Yet the stress in the beginning was still overwhelming. Our whole family was suffering. Not only was Gandharvika going through hell, our other two children Radhikant Rasika, aged 7 and 2 at that time, were not seeing their parents for extended periods of time. They were too young to understand what was going on. It was hard for my wife and I to be strong for them, knowing that the three of them could soon only be the two of them. I was at the hospital for almost 6 months continuously as Gandharvika went through the vicious cycle of chemotherapy, her blood count dropping, infection and readmission. It was a constant loop of suffering, the toughest 6 months of my life. What kept me sane was my spiritual practice, but primarily the outpouring of love from our friends around us. One of our friends would take my kids to their home every weekend and treat them like her own so they would not miss their mother. Both my sisters would watch my kids during the week as we rushed between work and the hospital. My father insisted that he would cook for us daily so that she would not miss home-cooked meals. 3 months passed like this. This abnormal situation became our normal routine. By the age of 4 it is said that a child starts to understand that they are an individual being, capable of having their own thoughts, aspirations, and dreams. But still being children, they are not fully mature yet. That is why their response to questions like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" is so entertaining. Walking through the dark corridors of the hospital I would wonder if I would see my daughter become a grown-up. In late September an issue cropped up. Gandharvika's birthday was fast approaching, and she had understandably lost all her initial patience. She wanted to go home to celebrate. The problem was that she had contracted a burning fever after her last round of chemotherapy. There was no chance she would be leaving the ward, the doctors warned us. It broke my daughter's heart. That is when we received more support. At lunchtime, as Gandharvika went through another round of tests, our friends and family, led by her class teacher, decorated the hospital room for her birthday as a surprise. They brought cake, party poppers, and all sorts of presents from my daughter's classmates. It was better than any birthday we could have planned. Gandharvika and our whole family were overwhelmed with joy. Cancer treatment in India can be very costly due to the intensive nature and long duration of the treatment. We were managing fine, but it was causing a strain on our family. Although we tried to refuse, one of our dearest friends offered to help pay for the treatment. "We really want to serve your daughter in this way," they said. I was deeply touched. To serve your own children is honorable, to want to give so much to serve another's children is downright heroic. We accepted their gift because of the love that it was accompanied with. During those trying times, our spiritual teacher Radhanath Swami met with us too, inquiring about our daughter's health. He held my hands and looked into my eyes. "I am intensely praying for Gandharvika, and I am intensely praying for all of you too," he said. Many people today belittle the power of prayers. But we had all the faith that the prayers and good wishes of those with deep-rooted spirituality in our community gave us the strength to deal with this turbulent phase of our life. Gandharvika is an energetic child. She loves to make friends. In her ward, there were many other children with the same disease whom she would play with, and we would bond with the families going through the same crisis. As they say, there is strength in numbers. Nurses would comment that our daughter was different from other children. She would be praying, reading, and even doing meditation. They took so much hope from this, and many even started practicing spirituality themselves. Although we took great courage from seeing someone battle cancer together with their family, we would panic when they lost the battle. Kids who were playing with the same toys Gandharvika had, were passing away right before our eyes. Innocent children being consumed by such a devastating disease. What if Gandharvika relapses? Was a recurrent thought for me. As I said earlier, these types of negative thoughts would pop up when I was alone, in the emptiness of the hospital, listening to the cold silence. How would we be able to cope if we lost her? At times like that we could not thank those who wrapped us in love enough, helping us to heal our wounds. The gratitude that we felt for our entire spiritual community in Mumbai was a beacon that guided us and little Gandharvika through her disease. And though we thought that her disease was terminal, Gandharvika is still with us today, laughing and praying. Those who are grateful are not immune to distress. However, gratitude on many different levels offered us unlikely solace in a time of great difficulty. "My car is fast," Harry said, as my consciousness returned to the conversation. But that was an emotional roller coaster. It seems like Gandharvika's father had a deep connection to the quality of gratitude. "Indeed," I said. "Indeed." I wiped my teary eyes. "We need to make time to practice gratitude if we want to be like him." "Definitely," Harry said in a somber mood. "I lead a very busy life. Even more reason to truly understand gratitude. If we don't, we can miss the most beautiful aspects of our existence," I emphasized. "Existence," I emphasized. "Existence," I emphasized. "Existence,"